American Family News on the Hour, I'm Chad Groening. Vice President Kamala Harris talked about immigration policies and her record as a prosecutor during a Fox News exclusive interview. Fox's Kristen Goodwin has more.
The vice president telling Fox's Brett Baer on Special Report.
Let me be very clear. My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency.
Addressing 3 women allegedly killed by migrants in the U.S. illegally.
And I can't imagine the pain that the families of those victims have experienced.
Calling border security a priority.
I'm the only person who's running for president who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations, from the Sinaloa cartel to the Guadalajara cartel to people who have trafficked in guns, drugs, and human beings.
Stressing she takes going after people who pose a threat to the safety of Americans very seriously. Kristen Goodwin, Fox News.
Danielle Alvarez is the Trump 2024 campaign senior advisor. During Fox and Friends First, she gave her assessment of the interview.
It was an absolute mess for Kamala Harris, but as has been her entire campaign and her entire 3.5 years in office, she couldn't answer a single question. And because it was a tough and fair interview, she was held to account.
Trump 2024 campaign senior advisor Danielle Alvarez. The Department of Justice is suing the state of Virginia and its governor Glenn Youngkin because the state was purging non-citizens from their voter registration rolls. AFN Steve Jordahl reports.
For almost 20 years, Virginia has been combing through their voter rolls to get rid of any non-citizens who mistakenly or purposefully got their names added. Constitutional attorney Abraham Hamilton III told the Today's Issues crew on AFR that Virginia law mandates the purge.
This has been a part of the state of Virginia's policy since 2006. It's state law, it's state procedures, and even some of the policies implemented by Governor Youngkin during his administration. This has been their policy for all of this time.
He says the Department of Justice is suing Virginia to keep illegal voters on the rolls. He says everyone culled from the rolls has already admitted they're not eligible to vote.
Through different processes like driver's license, DMV records, and other things, they check a box that says, I am a non-citizen, or they do not check a citizenship box, which triggers the Virginia policy.
Hamilton says some states allow non-citizens to vote in state and local races.
They're going to allow illegal aliens to vote in their state and local elections, which presents the question, well, how are you going to separate that from federal elections when the elections are happening at the exact same time?
Right.
And he says there's only one reason the DOJ is working so hard to keep ineligible voters on the rolls.
I think they are attempting to make it an election day issue to try to prevent states like Virginia and others to exclude non-citizens from participating in federal elections.
I'm Steve Jordahl.
A California university is launching a mandatory program that a representative of the counter-climate change movement calls bogus. AFN's Bob Kellogg explains.
First-year University of California, San Diego students must complete a one-quarter course in climate change in order to graduate, according to Breitbart News. Peter Murphy of the Committee for a Constructive Tomorrow says this isn't about academics, but about politics.
What's being required in San Diego are not about climate science, properly understood, but in fact, it's a climate agenda that is designed not to be truthful to students, but in fact to steer them in a very political and junk science type of direction.
Breitbart reports Muir College Provost Wayne Yang states UC San Diego administrators drew inspiration from the school's diversity, equity, and inclusion requirement. Murphy adds,
and I think that's probably the biggest lie of this whole effort, that somehow if we just do things differently, that the earth is going to start cooling someday. If it's cooling someday, it's going to do that on its own. It's not going to do it with our help.
Murphy argues the climate change agenda is a modern-day version of a flat earth society. I'm Bob Kellogg.
And that is American Family News on the Hour. I'm Chad Groening.
Hi, it's Sandy Rios, your old friend from the morning show. So many crucial and frightening events are unfolding before our eyes. I'd like to invite you to come over to the podcast, Sandy Rios 24/7, so that we can work our way through these difficult times together. AFR.net, any podcast platform, or at sandyrios.com. And one more thing, my book, God's Velvet Hammer, is now available on Audible. So come join us at Sandy Rios 24/7, and remember, God's Velvet Hammer, available at Audible.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the program Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network for this Thursday, October the 17th, 2024. Thank you for listening to AFR. I'm Tim Wildman with Fred Jackson. Good morning, Brother Fred.
Good morning, Tim.
Chris.
Hello.
Chris Woodward. And then in Kansas City is our good friend, Dr. Ray Pritchard. Good morning, Ray.
Good morning, Tim. How you doing today?
Doing well. You back? You back? You feeling well now?
You know, I was down for a few days with, strep throat, which first time in my life I ever had it. And,
really?
Yeah, they gave me a cocktail of drugs that have pretty much knocked it out. But that's tough, Tim. That's pretty tough. Once you get, it's hard to kick it.
Strep throat. That's when it hurts every time you swallow. Mm-hmm. At its, when it's at its worst, and you got a red throat, and so they give you penicillin. What they knock you up with?
Something called augmentin, something which is like amoxicillin on steroids. Okay,
there goes your Olympic career.
there it goes, right there. I was just on the cusp, almost made it.
You were going to bicycle in 2028.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, we're glad you're feeling better and back with us today. Give us a good word from the Bible this morning.
You bet. From 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 9. Paul was writing to his friends in Corinth, and he said, I'm going to come see you, but not right now because I got to stay in Ephesus. Well, Paul, why do you got to stay in Ephesus? And he said, because a great door for effective ministry is opened to me, and there are many adversaries. Sometimes we read a verse like that and go, Paul, well, what do you mean? How is it that you have an open door if you got all these enemies? My friends, understand in the service of the Lord, opportunities and enemies often, if not always, go together. When God opens a door, the devil stirs up the enemies. Dr. Bob Jones Sr., I like to say it this way: the door of opportunity swings on the hinges of opposition. So if today you are facing some difficulties in your service for Christ, do not give up. Do not give up. The devil is out there, friends. He is like a roaring lion seeking for someone to devour. But when God opens the door, go through it, knowing it won't be easy, but the Lord Jesus himself will walk with you. Open doors and adversaries, they go together in the service of the Lord, and the Lord goes with us as we go through those doors to serve him.
Amen.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's a sermon. Not even 3 points, but that's a sermon.
I mean, what a great truth, right? The door of opportunity swings on the hinges of opposition. And everybody who's tried to serve the Lord goes, that is right.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
Amen. All right. So before we jump into the interview last night that Vice President Harris did with Fox's Brett Baer, and there's a lot to talk about there. This is, I guess you would call it breaking news, Israeli military.
Yes. On AFN.net, you can find this story. Fred posted it just before the show. Israel says it is looking into the possibility that the Hamas leader, last name Sinwar, who is believed to be the mastermind of the October 7th, 2023 massacre of hundreds of Israelis, has been killed in a military operation. His death, which has not been confirmed, would be a significant moment in Israel's year-long war against the Hamas terrorist group. A lot of people are already posting about this on X as if it is confirmed. Israel, again, is still investigating. But a journalist by the name of Amir Mizrach posted on X today that, according to his sources, Sinwar may have been killed by an infantry soldier who has only been in uniform for 9 months. The guy was not part of the Israeli military back on October 7th. That's being attributed to an Israeli local news outlet there called Channel 11.
All right, so Fred, if this fella has been killed, who do they suspect he is again?
Yahya Sinwar.
Okay.
He is the Hamas leader. They attribute to him that he was the architect of the October 7th massacre of more than 1,200 Israeli men, women,
So
and children.
Israelis have been looking for him.
They have been looking for him. He's been around the Hamas territory for some time. He has, according to an Associated Press report, he has killed other Hamas leaders to get them out of the way, to gain power. An interesting note, Tim, I was mentioning this to you just before we went on the air. Again, according to the Associated Press, back many years ago, he was amongst 1,000 Hamas terrorists that were arrested by Israel. And while he was in prison in Israel, he was diagnosed with brain cancer. And Israeli doctors are given credit for saving his life. And he was eventually released. He was supposed to stay in prison for the rest of his life. But Israel released this guy along with 1,000 other prisoners in exchange for one Israeli soldier. And he has risen through the ranks. He has brought close ties between Hamas and Iran. And as I say, he is believed to have been the architect of this horrible massacre on October the 7th.
So why do you think that this is being mentioned when it's unconfirmed? I wonder.
Well, my speculation is that they're pretty sure.
Right, gotcha.
But they want to do some DNA testing just to make sure.
Ray, this once again proves you can't hide from the Israelis.
You know, this guy is the ultimate bad guy. He's like the Osama bin Laden of October the 7th.
Right.
He's the guy who thought it up. He's the guy who planned it. He's the guy who led it. He's the guy who pushed the button and said, let's go. And 1,100, 1,200 Israelis were slaughtered on that day. And you know that Netanyahu and the cabinet and the leaders of the Israeli military, they said, we're going to do whatever it takes to get this guy. And I think it's exactly what Fred said. I read somewhere that they have a body. They actually have the body. And they said, quote, it looks just like him, but they're doing the final test. I don't think they would even put the name out there unless they were reasonably certain already. God bless the Israelis. They are not messing around. They are, whether it's up in Lebanon or down in Gaza, they are going to destroy those who have meant such harm to them. So I hope they got this guy.
Yeah, I think this is Israel is viewing this as one of those once and for all moments, and that is, that they're going to take this opportunity to take out everything they can about Hamas and Hezbollah.
Yes,
the leaders, the soldiers, so to speak, the infrastructure, the hiding places. If they have to go into another country like Lebanon, or they will. Yep. They will, because they have to. They view it as survival, and they have to defend their land and their people. And
the Iranian leaders must be pretty nervous right now too, because just a few weeks ago, Israel took out Nasrallah, who is the Hezbollah leader. He was deep in a bunker in Beirut, and they found out where he was and took him out. Now, we do know that the Israelis have said they have their plan in place to retaliate against the Iranians, the missile attack back there a few weeks ago. So if I was a leader in Iran, I might be a little nervous today.
Hey, associated with this, if you can believe this, the Biden administration, which would include Vice President Harris, they've told Israel. What have they told Israel, Fred?
They have given Israel 30 days to increase the humanitarian aid into Gaza, or the Biden administration says we will cut off funding for new weapons in Israel. They've given them 30 days.
If Israel doesn't do
open up the channels for more humanitarian aid.
Yeah.
Now, Israel has said it doesn't have a problem with putting humanitarian aid in there. However, they know that what happens with that humanitarian aid, these Hamas terrorists take control of that.
Right.
And they feed themselves, as it were.
Right.
And not the people.
Right.
what one report says, what Israel wants to do, okay, we'll put lots of humanitarian aid in there, but we want to be in charge of the distribution.
Well, they have to be. Listen, if you can bring trucks into Gaza, for example, from Egypt, or ships from the Mediterranean, and they already do this, Israel already checks this, but you have to be able to also to check not only for the food and the medicine and the water and all those things, but also how about weapon parts?
Yes.
To make rockets, okay, that Hamas uses. You've got to take time to check for those things as well. So, are there people suffering in Gaza? Yes, there are.
Yes.
As a result of the war, yes, there are. That is a true statement. But Israel has to, as I said, has to be careful about what they allow into Gaza, and Biden and Harris are saying you're going to have to speed it up and do more to let humanitarian aid in, or we're going to cut off your. Did they say really cut off their weapons?
Cut off the funding for weapons.
Yeah.
That we give Israel.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. The entire time I've been on this planet, we've been giving the so-called Palestinian people untold amounts of money, and terrorists do control it and still attack Israel.
Well, I mean the United States federal government. We have always given money to Israel as part of our foreign aid that we do to countries around the world. We also give money to. We've given money to the Palestinian people. I don't know how that works now. I don't know who you give that to exactly. We give money to Egypt. You know, we give money. United States federal government. That's kind of redundant. The United States hands out money around the world.
We do. Well, taxpayers hand out money. It's distributed by the government.
Yeah, and some of it's meant, some of it's we buy people off.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's good. Okay. You might say, well, what do you mean by that? Well, I'll give you for an example. We give Egypt a lot of money, but the condition there is you keep peace with Israel.
Have either of you, has anybody on the show, one of the hosts, has anybody ever been in or around Gaza when you've gone to Israel? I've never been.
No, you don't go there. Ray may have been. You don't go near there.
No. I mean,
within 50 miles. Within 50 miles.
No,
right?
You don't go within 50 miles of that on a tour.
I was in. This is back in 1984. Now remember, Gaza wasn't turned over to the Palestinians until 2005 or 2006. Right. But I was there in 84, and so I remember walking on the beach in parts of what's now is southern Gaza. It wasn't
really?
Because it was under Israel's control.
Oh, yeah, okay, got you.
At that time.
Along the Mediterranean, it's probably beautiful there, isn't it?
It was beautiful beach, but not a soul there.
Yeah.
Our bus tore. We were the only ones walking on this beautiful beach on the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
We were on our way down to Cairo.
Oh, you went to Egypt?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So you crossed into Egypt, went to Cairo to go see the pyramids and everything?
Go see I actually stuck my head inside the door of a pyramid.
Wow.
What, did you see King Tut?
No, he was way down inside.
Did you hear walk like an Egyptian?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did ring the doorbell, but nobody answered.
Nobody.
I've been to Egypt, Mississippi.
Well, that's not exactly the same.
It's not. It's not.
Hate to tell you.
That's an actual place, America.
All right. So, as is Rome, Georgia.
Yes.
And I've been there, too. Athens, Georgia. They just got all kind of places of history over there.
It's an interesting question, guys. When will Israel retaliate? They've said, Fred, they're
against Iran.
Against Iran, right. They've said they're going to. They've picked out their targets. I mean, I was thinking to myself, if I was going to buy a home in Iran, I don't think I'd buy one near a nuclear facility at this point, right?
No, the real estate agents aren't showing those properties today.
That's not a good thing to do. But look, here's an interesting question that's popped into my mind. I don't know how much American politics plays into all this. Do you think it'll happen? Do you think they will attack Iran before our big election on November the 5th? Will that even be a consideration for the Israelis?
Probably.
Yeah,
probably.
I think Netanyahu will do what he wants. But the Americans have been pressuring since that Iran missile attack back a few weeks ago. the United States, the Biden administration, has been pressuring Israel not to attack the nuclear establishment or the oil wells.
Yeah.
They would they don't want Israel to do that.
All right, we'll move on to the interview last night. But before I do that, let me just say this. This is one distinctive between Trump and Harris on Election Day. What will be the policy of the United States towards Israel?
Yeah.
If Harris is elected, they will be anti-Israel.
Yes.
If Trump is elected, they will be pro-Israel.
Yes.
And I'm talking broadly and generally, with maybe some small caveats here and there in that definition. But I'm telling you, Harris and the people she hangs out with, they're trying to play it like they're neutral right now. No, you wait. If she were to get into office, the policy of the United States would be anti-Israel, and I don't know what that exactly would look like, but that's what it would be. Trump, in his time in office, was pro-Israel.
Yes,
and so that's just an issue to consider when you go to the polls and vote. You're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. All right, last night, do we know how many people watched that interview between Brett Baer and Kamala Harris?
I've not seen a ballpark figure, but it's safe to say it's in the millions.
Yeah, and also the clips went around the world, so to speak, because many people were questioning why in the world is Vice President Harris going to do a one-on-one interview with Brett Baer on Fox News, Fred?
Well, the speculation, the analysis has been because of the polls of late, which show Harris slipping behind Donald Trump. So the Harris camp believed that by going on Fox, that she might be able to persuade, for instance, some so-called independents that might be watching. Whether she did or not, that's another question.
Yeah. Chris, what happened last night?
Oh, my goodness. I mean,
bring us some of the hits.
They got into a lot of things.
She was late to the interview, wasn't she?
She was. So tardy for
she
that.
She has a reputation for that, and I'm being serious, of being late everywhere she goes.
Well, politicians in general, certainly those in office, they'll call a press conference, and then 45 minutes goes by, and reporters are getting antsy. But, yeah, they touched on a number of things from gender transitions or gender manipulations, as AFN refers to it, to immigration. Let's begin with this one because we touched on this issue a little bit earlier this week, and so this is kind of continuing coverage. There was a moment about 1/3 to halfway through the 30-minute interview where Brett Baer talked about, and he brought in the audio of her past support for things like taxpayer-funded gender manipulation procedures for prisoners. Clip 1.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
So are you still in support of using taxpayer dollars to help prison inmates or detained illegal aliens to transition to another gender?
I will follow the law, and it's a law that Donald Trump actually followed. You're probably familiar with, now it's a public report, that under Donald Trump's administration, these surgeries were available on a medical necessity basis to people in the federal prison system. And I think, frankly, that ad from the Trump campaign is a little bit of like throwing.
I have no idea what she said at the very end there.
Yeah. Well,
kind of indiscernible.
She said, I will follow the law.
Yeah.
No. That interview that a lot of political ads are manipulative and they are deceptive and they lack context, and all sides do it every day, all day. So Republicans do it in primaries against one another, as do Democrats. So attacking your opponent with half truths is as American as apple pie. Okay. However, what Harris right there is trying to deflect is exactly what she said in the interview that was shown that Brett Baer played, and that is she's at a LGBTQ friendly conference or doing an interview, and they're asking her, do you agree to pay for surgeries for people who want to transgender while they're in prison with taxpayer dollars? And she said, yes, absolutely want to do that. Remember, she says what did she play that again? Just play that again.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
There you go. I mean, there's nothing ambiguous about that. She's in favor of that. Now she's trying to, not answer the question Brett Baer asked her about that, because that position she holds is highly unpopular with the voting public in America. I would probably 10% of people would say, yeah, use my tax dollars to do transgendered surgeries on prisoners. I'm good with that. Yeah, maybe 10% high.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she's trying to. On the one hand, she's trying to say she's all for it, and then when she's called on it in front of Brett Baer, she says, "I don't know. I'm going to follow the law."
She'll follow the law. The other thing she quickly said, well, it was going on when Donald Trump was president. The difference is she is an advocate for this happening. This was happening under Donald Trump's watch as well, but he wasn't an advocate.
Well, and he didn't approve of it.
Yes.
And I don't think, quite frankly, I don't know all this. I think this was a state issue. So this was maybe going on in California where their government's just whacked out liberal. They'll do a lot of insane things, include pay for surgeries for people who want them in prison. They'll put people in California. Correct me if I'm wrong. They will, if you're a man and you're convicted of a crime and you go and you say, "Hey, I'm changing to a woman. Put me in with the girls' prison." They'll do that.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the kind of place you're talking about in California. I know there's a lot of great people in California. It's a beautiful place, a lot of great history, but their state government is Looney Tunes.
Yes. Okay,
Looney Tunes left.
Yes.
So, and that's where Kamala Harris comes from. All right, Ray, you want to say anything about this before we move on to? We're going to take a break and move on to Kamala.
Well, she's doing all she can to deny, deflect,
right,
and then lay it off on Donald Trump. This issue is a big one for the voters, Tim. It's a big one, and I think she loses a lot of black voters on this one. Yes, she does. Yes, she does. I hope Donald Trump bangs the drum on this coming down these last 19 days.
All right, we're going to take a short time out right here. Pardon me. Ray finished early and had a little something in my mouth there. Keep talking, Ray. I got to get through with this. Anyway, all right, we're going to take a short time out. And then we'll be back with more of Kamala Harris's greatest hits.
Yes.
That she
we
played
have several.
At the concert last night with Brett Baer. Why did she do this interview? Most people think it's a Hail Mary. Most people think she knows her internal polling shows she's behind in the swing states in particular, and she needs to do some catching up if she can. And how do you catch up? You try to go on a big network like Fox News and do a great interview that you can promote. Did that happen or not? We're going to talk more about that when we get back from this break.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
There's a game that most of us need to learn how to play. It's a real exciting and rewarding game. And it is a game that nearly every person can play with good results. The name of the game is How to Play Second Best. Now, it's true that this game isn't a very popular one. Most of us don't like to play second best because most of us want to lead the parade. And there's nothing wrong, basically, with wanting to lead the parade. We wouldn't be worth much if we didn't want to be at the front of the march. But this is where playing the second best comes in. For any school child can tell you that a parade can only have a very limited number of leaders. The rest must follow. The real trouble comes when we don't get to lead the parade and must become one of the followers. Not many of us know how to do that and do it well. Too many times we let our disappointment turn into bitterness and we become critical of the one who is leading. All of us have experienced this. having to play the role of second best. Fact about the business is that every one of us must do it every day. No person can be a leader in everything. Every person must follow in some things. There were two brothers once who were commercial fishermen. One brother was a natural leader. The other brother was destined to always be second best. Wherever the two were introduced, the introduction went something like this. Meet Peter and his brother Andrew. They are fishermen. Andrew was always the last one introduced. Even when Andrew was not with his leader brother Peter, he was still introduced like this. Meet Andrew, the brother of Peter. No matter where Andrew went, he was always second best, always Peter's brother. But playing second best didn't destroy Andrew. He knew how to play the game and played it like a pro. And anyone who knows the story about these brothers knows that Peter was what he was because of Andrew. There are some truths we need to learn in order to play the game of playing second best. First of all, second best doesn't necessarily mean one of smaller stature or of less importance. The backfield man does all the scoring and gets the publicity, but he'll be the first to tell you of the worth of the men up front. Then, too, being second best doesn't mean we haven't done our best. And if a person does his best, no one can ask him to do more regardless of what others are able to do. Real judgment comes not from comparing us against another, but comparing our results against our potential. For it's quite evident that all of us do not have the same number of talents. Andrew played the game like few people can. The thing that made Andrew great while playing second best was his deep-rooted humility. And unless you have that virtue, you'll never be able to play the game at all.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
But he saves the poor from the sword of their mouth and from the hand of the strong. So the helpless has hope, and injustice has shut its mouth.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
The breaking news out of Israel is that the Israelis have very likely killed the leader of Hamas. I don't know where that would have happened, somewhere in Gaza, I would guess. I don't know that for certain, but that's the world. That's the leading news story in the world right now. We will see if that's confirmed probably in the next few hours, because we're being told by the news reports that there is a body. So Israel's been on the hunt for this guy for over a year, since he is the mastermind, they say, behind the October 7th butchery that killed 1,100 Israeli citizens on that fateful day we all remember. So you're listening to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Fred, Chris, and Ray. And in a moment, we're going to get back to the Harris interview with Brett Baer, Vice President Harris with Brett Baer last night on Fox News, seen by millions and millions of people. Don't know why she did that interview, quite frankly. Myself, she'd have done better not to do it. But somebody told her to do it, and she probably, the best grade she got out of that thing was a D+, I'm thinking, Fred. Huh?
Yep. Yeah, I would agree. She came off as being very arrogant.
Yeah.
She came off as refusing to answer the direct questions that Brett Baer put to her. You know, he asked, for example, we'll get back to it, but he asked her, you know, you guys have been in power for the last 3.5 years. Her response to all of that was, well, all this bad stuff's been going on for 10 years, and that's when Donald Trump was president.
Yeah. You know why she didn't give good answers? because she doesn't have any.
Well, that's right.
Which is why you don't go on TV and do an
Right.
interview, right?
Yep.
Look, I don't doubt, Tim, that there are some Fox News viewers who are loosely conservative, but perhaps do not wish to vote for Donald Trump. And maybe she thought she could. There's a
She might appeal to
demographic she
them?
could go- maybe.
Yeah.
I don't think she helped herself at all last night.
No.
I didn't watch it. I watched clips of it. Fred watched it. Did you watch the whole thing, Chris?
Yes, I did. And I will say, if you can't handle tough questions from a guy on Fox News, how can people expect you to take on a dictator?
That's like Jack Nicholson almost right there. If you can't handle, what'd you say?
If you can't handle
The truth.
Yes.
Truth. Okay. All right. So we're going to come back and talk more about this because there's a couple more points we need to make with her interview. But before we do that, we go to Minnesota, where our friend Jan Markell is on with us. Jan is host of Understanding the Times, which is the radio program heard each weekend, Monday, Saturday, and Sunday here on American Family Radio. They cover such issues as Bible, the current events as it relates to Bible prophecy, what's happening in Israel, the Jewish people, a lot of issues covered by Jan and her team there. Good morning, Jan.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on. Whose music's playing?
I'm sorry. I got several phones by me, and that was another one. I apologize.
Several phones. Oh, you're like
she's an agent.
I'm trying to.
Are you an agent for some?
She handles Michelle Bachmann's
publicity. I'm important, and I'm not.
Yeah. Oh, that was a drugstore, huh?
Yeah.
Hey.
It was.
You don't have to tell us. We're not interested in your private cell phone business there.
Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. So, Fred, you have a question for Jan.
Jan, have you heard the news coming out of Israel at this hour? Your response on this is just another example of how Israel is able to get to the very top of the terrorist leadership.
You know, it's truly amazing, Fred, and fingerprints are confirming it is Sinwar, and this is a happy day in Israel. This man, again, it's hard to imagine the mindset of a man like this, a monster like this, who plans for such overall destruction, and in their mind, you know, they're planning with great joy and glee that so many they're going to kill so many. The Western mind and certainly the Christian mind cannot wrap around this kind of terrible, terrible evil, but he is gone off the planet at this time, and we know what his ultimate destiny is, and he will be in the lake of fire forever and ever and ever after Judgment Day. So it is a happy day for Israel, however.
So they are confirming this.
Jan has got some information. All right. Jan, you know, I mentioned at the top of the program, we were discussing this, and I mentioned that he was once a prisoner in an Israeli jail. He was diagnosed with brain cancer, and Israeli doctors saved this man's life.
Fred, it's hard for us again to wrap our brain around this, because you're absolutely right. This is the contrast here between the Israeli mind, which loves freedom, which loves life. This is the Western mindset. It loves life. This other Islamic mindset is the death cult. And there's such a stark contrast. And what you just said, you sort of said it all in one sentence. Exactly. Israel saved his life, and yet this man only lived to take Israeli lives and to destroy the whole state. Yes.
Hey, Jan, what do you got coming up on your show this weekend, heard here on American Family Radio?
Yeah, well, I've got Dr. Mark Hitchcock this weekend and Curtis Bowers, so it's a 1-2 punch, and we'll be talking some election-related issues. And believe me, I'll tell you, gentlemen, Minnesotans are really, we're on the edge of we've been dealing with Tim Walz for a lot of years here, and we don't want to see this go to the next level into the White House, because I can tell you from firsthand experience that would be a catastrophe. So we're praying.
Yeah. We've talked about this before, Jan, but, you wonder, how does a guy like Tim Walz, who's far left, he's probably to the left of Bernie Sanders, how does he get elected in any state and Minnesota but Minnesota is divided by the Twin Cities area, I guess, and then what I call them, the real people.
Yeah.
Out there in the yeah. Go ahead.
Tim, you're absolutely right, and I live in the Twin Cities,
right.
and we got two societies here. We've got Minneapolis, St. Paul, and then we got the real Minnesota with real
right.
patriot-loving, freedom-loving people. You're dead right. Yeah, but it's the Twin Cities, yes.
How many Somalis did Obama bring in to the Twin Cities area?
I believe he brought in 30. Let's go back to the 90s. They began coming in the 90s under Bill Clinton, and then many, many more came here in recent years. We have tens of thousands of Somalis and others from Islam.
Do they all vote Democrat?
Do they all vote Democrat?
Okay.
If they vote at all, they're going to vote Democrat.
Well, there you go.
It's a nightmare.
There you go. If they vote as a bloc Democrat, that's a big part of changing the dynamics of.
Yes. Exactly right.
Minnesota.
We call it the Red-Green Alliance, and it's here in Minnesota, and it's a nightmare, yes.
Yeah. Well, Jan, thanks so much. We look forward to hearing your show this weekend. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having.
Okay.
Bye now.
Take care, Jan.
That's Jan Markell, and she joined us from Minnesota, and she hosts the program on the weekend.
Understanding the Time, Saturday at 1 p.m. Central and Sunday at 12 noon.
Yeah, Central Time.
Yep.
You're listening to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Now, last night, again, coming back to the interview between Harris and Bret Baier last night, it was a contentious interview for the most part, right?
From the get-go.
They didn't go out for dinner after
they
it was
didn't.
over and just
they didn't fist bump.
No, they didn't.
No.
Not going to be a Christmas card shared between those two families.
Probably not.
Probably not.
She would call it a holiday
But
card.
what was the second part that you thought worthy of bringing up?
Well, I mean, like the other clips here.
The border part
includes immigration. I mean, right off the bat, for those that didn't see it, Bret Baier's first question was, and by the way, check out our Facebook page because I posted a link to the entire video for those that want to go back and watch it or didn't watch it at all. You can do that. From the very start, Bret Baier's first question was, how many illegal immigrants would you say this administration has allowed into this country? She didn't answer the question, so then he threw the number out. And then soon after that, he rattled off the various Americans who have been murdered, allegedly, by illegal immigrants, and asked her point blank on national television whether she would apologize to the families of victims of crimes committed by illegal immigrants. I have the audio clip too.
Jocelyn Nungary, Rachel Morin, Lakin Riley, they are young women who were brutally assaulted and killed by some of the men who were released at the beginning of the administration. Do you owe
Brett,
those families an apology?
Let me just say, first of all, those are tragic cases. There's no question about that. There's no question about that. And I can't imagine the pain that the families of those victims have experienced for a loss that should not have occurred. So that is true. It is also true that if a border security had actually been passed 9 months ago, it would be 9 months that we would have had more border agents at the border, more support for the folks who are working around the clock trying to hold it all together.
Madam Vice President.
To ensure that no future harm would occur. And this election in 20 days will determine whether we have a president of the United States who actually cares more about fixing a problem, even if it is not to their political advantage in an election, because there was a solution, Brett.
Now, they're talking of, the question began with, you let these people in when you entered office. And she talks about how the border bill would have prevented this, and it would not, because those people were already in the country, the people that are accused of murdering.
Did he point that out?
No.
Okay. Of course.
Well, in setting up the question, though, his question was, wait a minute, you came into office.
Right.
For the last 3.5 years,
right.
You have been in charge of the border.
Right.
The backdrop to all of this is that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden erased all the elements that Donald Trump had put in place to secure the border.
And they did that proudly.
And they did it. The other thing we need to point out, one of the references was to the death of one young lady.
Mm-hmm.
She was killed by a man who's now charged. He's an illegal alien. A year and a half ago.
Yeah.
She references a bill that just was put in 9 months ago.
Yeah. That's
So
what I was saying.
That was tried to be implemented.
Yes.
9 months ago.
This is her go-to point,
Right,
and she's been doing this even prior to this interview last night.
I don't know why she doesn't just say this, Ray. And I know you are going to say, well, that's nuts. Why would anybody say that? If I were her, because this is really what she believes, what I'm about to tell you, because I can read her mind. What she really believes, Kamala Harris, she doesn't believe in borders. She thinks they're immoral. It keeps people from coming here who want to come here for a better life and to vote Democrat and for free medical care. And that's what we should be doing. That's what those are her actions and her words prior to her becoming vice president. We had the clip of her at a rally where she's dancing and she's saying, yes, yes, education, no, no, deportation.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that?
Yeah.
She's chanting with the group. She's like, lifting her hands like she's doing some kind of celebratory dance. Okay. This is who she is. The reason she hasn't done anything about the border, even though she's been the border czar. Remember when? Now that wasn't her proper title, but that's what Biden appointed her as. Remember that early on?
Yep.
I've appointed Vice President Harris. She's well capable of taking care. She's gonna find out why this people are coming here by the millions. And we're gonna that itself, by the way, was window dressing because that was gaslighting because. They were getting a lot of heat, Biden and Harris, for what was happening, but with after he went into office and then all these people started coming over the border by the millions. Well, what happened was that's Biden and Harris did away with everything that Trump had done and put in place, and remember they were doing that proudly. They were saying, "No, these are racist. These are racist policies." That keep people from coming here. They're inhumane. Walls are inhumane. Remember that?
Yep.
Well, then we invite a surge.
Mm-hmm.
We want to pay for everybody's health care who can get here from around the world. Remember that?
Yes.
So, and they raised their hands at the Democrat, Harris and Biden did. Yes, we want to pay for everybody's health care who comes here illegally. To not do so is immoral. So I'm just saying, I think she would probably be better off to make that appeal than to try to obfuscate or to try to deny that she's always been for open borders. That's been her. So, Ray, what do you think there?
Look, her answer was as ambiguous as it could possibly be. You're right. She and Joe Biden are pro-open borders.
Right.
And I don't think any serious voter who knows anything about the record is going to believe that suddenly she's decided to become strong on border security. She doesn't even believe in border security.
Right. She did. I'm telling you, some of these Democrats, they just do better just to say, yeah, for open borders. What's your next question?
Mm-hmm.
Because their actions are open border actions.
Yeah. Here's what's happened.
Yeah.
They've been in office long enough for us to see the results of their policy.
Right.
When they removed border construction, when they stopped Remain in Mexico.
Right. That was a big deal.
That was a big deal. Now we have seen the results of all of this. We have seen the results in violent deaths of young men, women, and children. We have seen the results in fentanyl deaths, thousands. We have seen the results just recently in Colorado, Venezuelan gangs taking over apartment buildings. See, they were hoping none of this would happen, but it has. Now they're depending on the mainstream media, which
to cover for
our friends of the Democratic Party, to cover for them.
Yeah. I want to do one other segment here with Harris and Brett Baer, VP Harris and Brett Baer last night, if you have it, Chris. And that is when Brett Baer asked her, "Hey, you've been in meetings with Joe Biden for 3 years. You didn't know he was you didn't know he was in this sad condition? Do you have that?"
I don't have it with me, but I can have Steve get it for us.
Well, maybe Steve has it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
All right, what happened in that
Yeah. Well, she
Well-
she immediately went to, things have been going on. Bad things have been going on for 10 years, and Donald Trump
with
was
Biden?
Yeah.
I'm talking about Biden's mental decline.
Mental decline. Oh no, what she went to on that front, as she did every question, she went to Donald Trump.
He's responsible for Biden's mental decline?
I'll have Steve grab that
No,
for you.
she stayed away from all of that.
Okay.
She said what you really need to be concerned about is the mental stability of Donald Trump. That's
All
what
right,
she went
well,
to.
Ray, anyway, did you see that? Did you see much of the interview, Ray? Did you see clips or what?
Just the clips.
Okay.
Since then, yeah.
Well, maybe we can get that, but that, to me, I watched that.
Yeah.
I watched when Brett Baer asked her, "Hey, you've been in meetings with Biden. You didn't know something was wrong?" That's the essence of his question, right?
Pretty straight up. Pretty straight up.
Yeah. Again, I think she would have done better to say this. I mean, she had no answer. She was fumbling around. She was I've forgotten what she even said exactly. I think she was flummoxed by that question. But again, I think she would have probably done better. What do you say?
Well, yeah. One thing, she has talked about how Trump is a hothead and we can't have him back in the office the way he acts. But at one point, she was visibly angry, and this
She
is
was a
where,
hothead?
Yeah, this is where television trumps radio sometimes in things. Because at one moment, at one point during the interview, she got mad and her voice changed. Her voice got deeper, and she started shaking her finger at Brett Baer.
Yeah,
shaking her finger.
Like pointing at him, like I'm
3 feet away.
She, trying to give him the business.
But on that same thing, on the same topic, she flip-flopped again.
On what topic?
Remember, she's been interviewed twice now in the last couple of weeks, and she was asked about about how she would change things, and she said maybe interviews on a couple of other stations. She said,
"What would you do differently?"
I wouldn't do anything differently.
Mm-hmm.
And last night, what she said was Joe Biden's not on the ticket.
She tried to make it about Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I were her, I would say this. Again, maybe my answers are not politically correct enough, but I would just say, listen, I've been vice president for 3.5 years. Yeah, I've been in meetings with Joe Biden, and yeah, he's losing it. And I've known that for a couple of years.
She could never say that, could she? She couldn't say that.
Why not? Just say I've known that for a couple of years, but I'm only vice president. What do you want me to do?
Right.
Go out and call out my own president on TV for being in mental decline? Who does that?
I think some voters would appreciate honesty in that.
Well, I mean, what I've just said is the actual truth.
Well, it is the truth.
So why wouldn't you just say that?
Because she wants to win the election.
Yeah. Well, does it hurt her to admit that she's known that that Biden's been on the decline?
Yes,
it would hurt her.
She was out there for the last 3.5, particularly the last year and a half, I would say. Saying, hey, he's brilliant.
Okay, I don't know that hurts her any worse than trying to do what she's doing now and that play dumb. Yeah. Oh, I didn't know what was he was sharp as a tack up until the debate.
Yeah.
Huh? Nobody believes that either.
No.
Another miscalculation I think she made last night was she has tried to pin all of the blame on the lack of a border bill on Donald Trump. But at one point when Brett Baer kept pointing out, hey, even 6 Democrats voted against this bill. It wasn't all Republicans. At one point, she just broke down and said, look, we had a broken border before Donald Trump was president.
Well, that is true.
It is.
But that's only part of it. Donald Trump, when he was in office, did as much or more than any other president to secure the southern border. They even denied him, the Democrats denied him the money to build more secure walls in places that need walls. Mm-hmm. And fences, but they denied him the money. They said it was immoral to put up walls. So,
I think when it comes to the border, the American people know the truth.
Yeah.
They know that she is just blowing smoke when she talks about bills. There was a bill in place. No.
Well, her bill and the Democrats here's you got to be. We've talked about this before. You have to sort of watch their words and because they'll say we're for comprehensive immigration reform. That's what the Democrats say.
Right.
And the Republicans are against that, i.e., that would solve the problem. Well, what they don't tell you most of the time is what the Democrats are talking about is a, quote, pathway to citizenship. Mm-hmm. That's their answer to immigration reform. Comprehensive immigration reform?
Yes.
most Americans look at the door where the people are flooding in, and they say, shut the door. We want you to shut the door because we have to have order, law and order in this country, and there's a legal process for coming to America. Shut the door. Harris and Biden say, no, we're not going to shut the door. We want the door to be open. We just want everybody to fill out their papers when they get here so they can get a pathway to citizenship. You see the difference?
Yep.
And Trump, when he was in office, shut the door.
Mm-hmm.
He shut the door, and he tried best he could to shut the door. Again, Trump and the Republicans are not opposed to immigration.
No.
But because Trump's proposed a lot of people coming here, millions, over 1 million a year, but you come here illegally.
Mm-hmm.
And quite frankly, you're supposed to be able to come and, unless you're escaping for political asylum reasons,
right?
You're supposed to come with a skill.
Yes.
And you're supposed to come and be able to contribute and support yourself. In fact, Fred, I remember you telling me, because there's a lot of immigration going on to Canada from around the world, especially from Asian countries, and there's a stipulation in your home country of Canada.
Yes.
If you want to come and live here, what do you have to do?
Well, what happened during when Hong Kong was about to be turned back over to China?
Right.
There was a flood of applications from people in Hong Kong to come to Canada. But they had to prove they were going to be financially independent. In other words, they weren't going to live off the government.
Right.
That's
you have to say you can support yourself when you come here.
When I applied for a green card to come to this country, my father-in-law had to sign a document saying, if Fred Jackson ever becomes unemployed, I will take care of my son-in-law. He will not be a burden on the state. I had to sign, or I wouldn't get a green card.
Right. So anyway, so Ray, you don't think my thing about I've known Biden's.
Can you imagine if she said that? Because then the next question from Brett Baer would be, well, shouldn't he step down if he has lost all mental acuity, right?
I would say yes if I were her.
Man, I
So we have to play these games, huh?
Yes, yes.
You have to play the games.
You have to play the game.
She should say yes. He should step down.
That was her
Have
moment
you seen
to go,
him?
look,
I've seen him.
He's 81. I'm 59. Put me in. New way forward.
Right.
She wants the American public to believe that she has changed. She's anti-fracking. Now she's pro-fracking.
Right.
She has flipped and flipped and flipped on all the major issues that she knows would cost her the election. And she is hoping with the support of the mainstream media, she can fool the American people into believing she's someone else now.
Yeah. I think the only reason she is close is because, and I know people who favor and like Donald Trump aren't going to want to hear this necessarily, but there is a massive anti-Trump sentiment out there too.
Sure.
In America, and but there's a massive anti-Harris sentiment. So it's kind of like whoever wins is whoever the American people like more than the one that they don't like less.
Or dislike the least.
Something like, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Because I saw the polls yesterday, and it had Harris and Trump both at the same in terms of their favorability and unfavorability numbers.
Right.
So that's why the race is, at least the polls show, is very, very, very tight, very close.
19 days away.
It can't come here soon enough.
Yes.
We'll be back momentarily with more.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Abraham Hamilton III.
If you really want to see the tides turning in our country, can I challenge you and encourage you? If the Lord could grab a hold of us in our family, you would see the tide in our politics turn.
The Hamilton Quarter, weekday afternoons at 5 Central on American Family Radio.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News on the Hour. I'm Chad Groening. Vice President Harris detailed her economic plans during a Fox News exclusive interview. Fox's Kristen Goodwin tells us more.
The vice president telling Fox's Brett Baer on Special Report.
I'm offering a plan to deal with affordable housing. I'm offering a plan to deal with what we need to do to strengthen small businesses, which are the backbone of America's economy. I am offering a plan that is about taking care of young parents and giving them the support they need.
Stressing she knows the immigration system needs to be fixed.
It is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people.
Detailing her career prosecuting cartels and transnational criminal networks and saying she wants to be very clear that her presidency would not be a continuation of President Biden's. Kristen Goodwin, Fox News.
Harris and the Democrats continue to accuse former President Donald Trump of being a, quote, threat to democracy. Trump responded to the attacks on Fox.
I heard about that. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
And during an interview on Univision, Trump made it clear that to immigrate here, you need to love this country and its people. A law firm continues to speak out against efforts to restructure the Supreme Court. Now the firm invites you to be part of the effort. AFN's Chris Woodward has more.
First Liberty Institute has an online form inviting people to, quote, take the pledge and stand for judicial independence. Visitors provide their first and last name, an email address, and a zip code. A telephone number is optional. Kelly Shackelford of First Liberty says things such as court packing or adding more justices to the court would be a terrible idea and do more harm than good to our nation.
They could literally, if one party were to have the House, the Senate, and the presidency, they could add 5, 10, 15 justices and just take over the court to get the results they wanted to get. The problem with court packing is every other country where they've tried it, the day you do that, your country is over. The rule of law is over because the court collapses as an independent branch, and it's just something that's underneath the political power. And whatever rights you think you have at that point, you don't, because the majority party can just simply add justices until they take that right away.
In September, First Liberty announced a $2 million ad blitz warning people about court reform schemes.
All of a sudden, because the extreme left doesn't like a couple of opinions, they want to completely dismantle it.
I'm Chris Woodward.
A conservative Christian mom in Virginia who qualified to substitute teach unexpectedly found she was excluded 2 days before she was to start. She now wants answers. AFN's Bob Kellogg has that story.
Lindsay Rich decided to become a substitute teacher after narrowly losing in a school board race. Victoria Cobb of the Family Foundation of Virginia believes she was rejected for speaking out about the school's diversity, equity, and inclusion policy.
And I do believe it is very likely that she was rejected because she ultimately didn't prevail in her race. He simply wants to enact Governor Youngkin's model policies for respecting all students and ensuring privacy.
Cobb believes a further investigation clearly reveals Rich was discriminated against because of her faith. She should pursue a lawsuit.
The law in Virginia is very clear that, and nationally, federally, that you cannot discriminate against someone because of their deeply held religious views. If they determined that she was in fact discriminated on because she's a Christian, then yes, I would hope she would pursue legal recourse.
Rich reports she has sat at the last 2 school board meetings until close to midnight, waiting for an explanation, and says she will continue to do so until she gets answers. I'm Bob Kellogg.
Remember, you can access American Family News 24/7 simply by logging on to afn.net or by downloading the AFN app. And that is American Family News on the Hour. I'm Chad Groening.
Let's think about what God has done. I would wager that his top news story is still that the free salvation through the blood of Jesus Christ is available to all. I wager that will be the top news story until that salvation is no longer available. You will have made your decision for eternity. He doesn't ask us to do anything he won't, and then he does above what we can possibly do.
Hear Todd Herman on A Disciple's View, weekdays 12 p.m. Central on AFR.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, president of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back to Today's Issues on this Thursday, October the 17th. Tim, Fred, Ray, and now Steve Paisley, Jordahl.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Steve.
Hey,
we don't want to spend but a minute or two on this, but we do want to play the clip that we were referencing last half hour between Brett Barron and Vice President Harris last night. And the question...
Apparently, the question was, when did you notice that President Biden had was slipping mentally? And this was the exchange, cut 11.
You call Donald Trump, he's misguided. You say now
He's
unstable.
He is unstable, Brett.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this.
And,
you told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump
but
is.
you talked about it.
And Donald Trump
After George Clooney said within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden.
He has the experience to do what he did.
Yeah, well, she paused there. She was kind of stunned by the question.
She was.
Because it took her 5 seconds of silence to even gather her thoughts enough to respond.
Mm-hmm.
Which to me, that's a instantaneous answer. If you're being truthful, you just say, well, about a year ago, or, right?
Yeah.
Or just say.
But we've already covered it. She couldn't dare. She couldn't say that, right?
Right. But what Brett Baer, the reason, you might say, well, Brett Baer's being unfair to her and he's doing a gotcha question. Well, and reporters do gotcha questions all the time. But his was not a gotcha question because he set it up like this. You said Donald Trump is unfit mentally, basically, temperamentally, to be president, while all the while your boss is basically lost his mind in terms of being able to run the office of the presidency, and you haven't said a word.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's what he said. Next topic, Steve.
All right. It turns out that we've been lied to, can we say, about our economic state here. There's two economists, Peter St. Onge and E.J. Antony, who did a study with Heritage Foundation, and they found that if you adjust the numbers so that they're accurate, and they gave 3 ways that they're not accurate, that inflation is actually much, much higher than we are told. Let's listen to what they have to say. Now, maybe I can explain some of this when we're done. Cut 9.
If it feels like a recession, you are not alone, because according to a new study from the Brownstone Institute, authored by myself and my very based colleague E.J. Antony, if you measure inflation correctly, turns out the U.S. economy has actually been in recession since 2022, as in during most of the Biden-Harris abomination or administration. In the study, we made several pretty obvious adjustments to the deceptive way official statistics calculate inflation. Together, these nearly double inflation during Biden-Harris, taking it from 20.9% in the official so-called GDP deflator to 39.9%. Official statistics don't measure the cost of owning a house, which is the mortgage times the interest rate plus property taxes, insurance, and down payments. Instead, they use a convoluted lagged indicator based on rent, almost like they're trying to hide it. Second is something called hedonic adjustment, where government statisticians reduce the price of a product if they think it got better. So if your energy bill doubled because they mandated windmills, they could say global warming is so important that adjusted for quality, your energy bills went down because you got the electricity plus the climate change. Cute, right?
So, and that's there's a third one that they did, which basically is the example I give was with health insurance. They measure health insurance by the profitability of the insurance company, but when you're paying for health insurance, you're not just paying for the operation you get. You're also paying into insurance for just the liability for your part. If you never have any illness, you're still paying into it. So, given those adjustments, we have been in recession since 2022, and our 40% we've gone up in since 2019. And I could give you some examples specifically about how those went up.
Well, give us a couple, three.
Disposable personal income. We were told that we have that 35.3% of we have an increase in adjusted personal income, disposable income from January 2019 to May 2024. The government tells us our personal disposable income went up 35.3%. After adjustment, it only went up 12.9%. Orders for new durable goods. We're told that 7.5% increase since January 2019. Actually, it went down 13%. The other retail sales, the last one I'll give you. You were told the retail sales went up between January 2019 and May of 2024 by 23%. They actually went up by 3.2%.
What source are you citing here? Where did this article come from?
This is a study out of the Brownstone Institute by Peter St. Ange.
And the bottom line is they're saying inflation is worse than we're being told.
Right.
And the reason we're not being told by the mainstream media that inflation is what most Americans know it is. It's been highest for a couple of years now in terms of grocery store stuff, for example. And that is they want to protect Biden and Harris from the damage it would do if the general American public knew the statistics on inflation. Is that true?
I don't know that
they would say
previous, that. I don't know that previous administrations didn't use the same ways to calculate the economy, but certainly it has been increased since it's been in recession since 2022.
You know, one of the scary economic numbers that's out there that the Biden administration and certainly the left-wing media don't not talk about is the amount of credit card debt. We get reports that come out almost on a monthly basis, and they talk about, well, consumers must be confident because the retail sales have gone up, but they don't differentiate between somebody paying cash for something and people putting it on a credit card. Credit card debt is now well over $1 trillion in this country. That's not good.
No, I think any candidate who, Ray, can come out now with a promise to raise credit card debt for the American people like Biden did student debt, loan debt.
Right.
I think
would sign a bill, get rid of all of it. Right?
That candidate would win going away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really do. So, I don't know, Fred. You might want to consider that, running for president and offer forgiving everybody's credit cards.
I don't think you can.
No, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. Thank you very much.
Ray, I don't know exactly how to rank issues, but I know the economy is right at the top for the American people, the general public.
Right. It's the economy, stupid. Right. I mean, James Carville told us that. And people vote their pocketbooks. Right. And I was just thinking, I mean, Steve, I didn't totally understand what the guy was saying, 20% to 39%, that's pretty technical. Okay, so I go by the Costco, the Costco variation.
Right.
And this is basically how much does it cost us, my wife and I, because we go to Costco where all true Americans shop, right? So we go there every few weeks and we fill up just one shopping cart, right? Here's the deal. Maybe 4 years ago, for us to fill up a shopping cart would be about $150, $200. Now it's for the same stuff. And I don't think Costco is out of line in terms of their prices, but they're higher now than they used to be, right? If we get out with one shopping cart for less than $300, that's a really good trip to Costco. And I think every American understands at the gas pump and at the grocery store and at places like Costco, prices have gone up and up and up. And this is a winning issue for Donald Trump. And I notice he is hammering that almost every place he goes, and he ought to.
Yes.
All right, next topic, Steve.
All right. I know you guys talked about the conversation between Brett Baier and Kamala Harris with regard to victims of immigrant crime. It turns out that all crime has been underreported. The FBI has quietly updated their crime statistics to reflect a much greater criminal activity since Biden has been in office. Remember the moment in the debate where they were fact-checking Donald Trump when he said, remember David Muir? In fact, we can listen to it. Listen to cut 7 and see if you remember this particular cut.
Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice President Harris,
the FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud.
It turns out he was right. The FBI has quietly updated the crime data to show a big jump in violence.
Okay, this has happened before. I remember when this happened before. That is the do you call it manipulation of leaving?
Yes,
leaving the numbers out. That's a pretty big deal for the big cities.
Yes,
of the FBI crime stats for the nation, and you leave out Los Angeles, New York, Chicago.
Right.
It's going to look a lot better.
Well, and what they do sometimes too is change the definition of violent crime.
Right.
You know, let's say there's a robbery at a Walgreens and the guy has a gun. It's not counted as a violent crime. That's the bottom line in all of this.
Yeah.
So they redefine things in order to bring down the violent crime stats. I'm rather surprised, actually, that this close to the election, that there's a few honest people there left at the FBI, because it jumped from 2% decline in violent crime to more than 4%. So a 6%
4% increase.
A 4% increase. So 6% overall.
Yeah, they do say
minus 2 to plus 4.
They do say they quietly updated the numbers. So I don't know how it.
Yeah, I know. So why quietly? Why didn't you come out there and say, "Oops, we left out some stats here that we want to add to this"?
So the government is always revising. You see this every time you see the payroll numbers. We get a number, the number of jobs that were added in June.
Yes.
They say so many jobs were added in June. And then about August or September, they say we're revising the numbers from June, and the jobless numbers go up or down, or however they revise it. So part of the collection of data with regard to economy and crime and some of these large issues, it's not simple. And it is easy to, there's initial numbers and then there's the adjusted numbers, but we're finding out, whether it's purposeful or not, that things were a lot worse under the Biden administration than we've been told, and Donald Trump just happened to be right.
Next story.
All right. We've been talking on this show quite a bit about the COVID vaccine and how the dangers that are associated with it. Reporter Catherine Herridge, who was with Fox for a long time and then moved to CBS, and then when she proved to be an actual reporter, CBS dumped her. And now she's doing her own investigative reporting. Catherine Herridge reports, and I can't recommend her enough. She's a very strong reporter. This is what she is writing. The Army and National Guard are accused of abandoning a 24-year-old soldier with debilitating heart condition. That internal memos from the Army National Guard linked to COVID-19 vaccine. New military records confirm the soldier's heart injury was in the line of duty and details her account of complications since receiving the second dose of Moderna. Moderna did not respond to Catherine's questions. Army Specialist Carolyn Stanek now faces more than $70,000 in medical debt that the Army is not picking up because they don't recognize it as in the line of duty. They do privately and in internal memos, but they're not telling them.
So Catherine Herridge, again, I agree with you, is a highly respected reporter, Fox News, CBS. Somebody sent her the emails internally from the Army
internal memos from the Army that show that the heart disease is linked to the COVID vaccines.
Heart disease? Not now. I've heard of. The reason I said that is we've all heard of the
heart attack, strokes.
Yeah,
myocarditis.
Yes, myocarditis.
That's a form of heart disease.
Okay, that's what you mean by that.
Yeah.
Or maybe other things, but you're
Well, it
saying
could be other things, but it affects the heart. The spike protein affects the heart, and they don't know whether or not the effects, whether the myocarditis gets worse, down the road.
But this soldier,
yes,
incurred a lot of
$70,000 in medical debt.
That isn't covered by the Army.
No,
while she was serving.
Although she was mandated for getting the vaccine. That's the thing.
Right, which was incredibly immoral. What happened to the military personnel at that time, forcing them to choose between their job and of serving country and getting an experimental shot put in their bloodstream.
Yeah.
Which didn't even stop COVID nor spreading it or preventing it. And so, Fred, you went through that with one of your family members, right?
That is correct.
I did too.
You did too?
Yeah.
Yes, a family member who refused to take it.
Right.
And was amongst those who were taken in for counseling.
And Biden did that, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, Biden told us you better get your shot or, grandma across the table at Christmas time won't be there because you got to protect her. You got to take the shot. Everyone's got to take the shot.
Well, had they just recommended the shot, that would have been fine.
Yeah.
But not make our Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard choose between serving and getting, again, it was always called an experimental shot.
My experience was different than I had a family member who came down with myocarditis.
After getting the shot?
After getting the shot.
Well.
And it's ongoing. I mean, this relative is continuing.
Ray, do you know anybody like that, or?
Not personally, but these stories, they're not. We shouldn't think, well, here's one and here's one. No, there are hundreds, thousands of stories like this all across the country.
And studies are coming out now, too.
Yes.
Well, I remember in the midst of COVID and the vaccine being promoted around the world that there were some European countries that stopped requiring males under 30, I think it was, from getting the vaccines.
Yeah.
Because they were seeing too many instances of myocarditis.
More harm than good.
So enough to give them pause. And these were, I think it was Spain and Germany and maybe Sweden or so. I may have but it was 3 or 4 European countries who said, well, we got to stop this. There's too much risk involved.
Well, as you said, Tim, the big problem was the mandates. You will.
Right.
And it was not only our military people, our healthcare people, nurses, people working in medical offices, mandated. You will lose your job if you don't take this shot.
I would have more understanding. We've talked about this before, but I would have had more understanding of a mandate had the vaccine actually been a vaccine.
Yes.
Now, I don't know that I necessarily would have agreed with federal government mandates. You do this or you lose your job, that kind of thing. However, if you're going to do that, at least make it something that is effective at your doing what your goal and objective is. And when we found out, and the CDC and Fauci and Dr. Fauci and all of them admitted it, halfway through the vaccine process, they said, it doesn't keep you from getting COVID.
Yeah.
And then they said, and guess what? It doesn't keep you from spreading COVID either. So then people are going, well, you're making me take something, forcing me to take something that doesn't stop me from getting it and doesn't stop me from spreading it.
Yes.
But you're going to force me to get it anyway. You see what I'm saying? If they could have said, for example, yes, we're forcing you to get this, and we're forcing all Americans to get this. Why? Because this stops you from getting COVID. Then people would have been, okay, sign me up for that.
That just happens to be
Most
what they
people
said, but they were lying.
That's what they said early on.
Yeah, and for context, the best sources that I talk to say that there is marginal benefit from the vaccine. It can help, and that these myocarditis issues are fairly rare.
That's true.
But it dwarfs.
Unless it happens to you.
Well, that's true. But, I mean, every time you come out with a vaccine, you have contraindications. You have a list. Somebody keeps track of all the side effects. And if the COVID vaccines would have been pulled months and months and months before, or maybe just a month after it was introduced, because these side effects started coming in. If it was a regular vaccine under a regular regimen, it would have been tested for many years before they put it out, and they would have pulled it completely because of the side effects.
The thing was, too, Tim, when the promises of what this vaccine would do proved to be false.
Right.
They should have ended the mandates right there.
Yes.
That's when the mandates. But the government continued to punish these people for refusing.
Because they wanted to control people.
Yes. And the problem was the government is joined at the hip with Big Pharma.
Yeah.
That's a huge problem.
Yeah.
You talk about a conflict of interest.
Yeah. I can see that. Go ahead, Steve. We got 3 minutes.
All right. I want to introduce you to a poor young soul. I don't know that we have her name. This is a TikTok lady. She is all on the bandwagon against Israel. She's pro-Palestinian, and she wants to just make her thoughts known. She comes upon a restaurant that's flying some flags, and she says, I'm going to tear down these flags. This is genocide, and we have a little bit of a – listen to what she said. This is her actually filming herself taking down these flags. Cut 10.
I'm taking it down. I believe this one. I'll take this one down right here. I don't stand for this. There's genocide, and I don't stand for Zionism. There's a genocide. You know that, right? They're killing children. What's the purpose? Be proud of your heritage. Y'all understand there's a genocide, right? You understand, right? This is not okay. This is Greek. What? Really? Greek. Oh, I thought it was Israel. My bad. Really? Yeah. Look, it looked like Israel.
She started tearing down a bunch of Greek flags because she thought they were Israeli.
Yeah, I think that was in Philadelphia or New York. I saw that New York last night.
It was a Greek restaurant?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, you had this genius here. You heard her.
Man.
And she by the way, I hope she gets charged with destroying property, because what she did, she was like a Israeli protester, protesting against Israel and Zionism and Semitism. She's anti-Semitic, and she's like the people on campus, pro-Palestinians, what she would say. So she's walking down the street filming herself like these TikTokers do, and she decides, hey, I'm going to tear down these flags in front of this restaurant because they're blue and white and they represent Israel. So then you heard the owner comes out and says, hey, what are you doing? You're destroying our property. These are Greek flags, not Israeli flags. He might as well have said, you idiot.
Right.
And she goes, oh, my bad. You hear? Right. My bad.
The interesting thing is, after she made a fool of herself, she still posted.
Well, she posted
video.
On TikTok, right?
Because these TikTokers, all they care about is clicks and numbers and followers.
Chris pointed out there's a cross on the Greek flag too. By the way, probably
she's tearing down flags, and she doesn't even know what she's supposed to look for. Huh?
God bless our university system.
All right. Thanks for joining us. See, today's Thursday, so tomorrow's Trivia Friday. Trivia Friday, we'll have some fun and a good time tomorrow. We'll see you then.
You know, there are many ways we can impact the world around us.